When you don't take it personally, you have the ability to remove yourself from the situation and actually move forward into the next steps on how we resolve it, how can we avoid these things in the future, acknowledging what is in my power to do right now, what she can expect from Augusta. Hey, this is Lonnie here at the Command Center. One of the main roles and responsibilities we have at the Command Center is handling all the incoming calls from the clients. So it is very important for us to be good at and receive complaints well from the clients. So typically someone will call in, they call in pretty emotional and upset, and we just meet them where they're at, try not to interrupt them as much as we can. Sometimes it is helpful, depending on the person, to at least acknowledge what they're saying with, okay, or things like that, the affirmations of that we are actively listening. While that's happening, you're trying not to interrupt them, really just absorbing the facts of their complaint and trying to interpret what they're saying in terms of what is the main issue and what are they expecting as a resolution. While you're listening to them, you're pulling up their profile, their account, seeing if it's a job that the crew's there right now, or if it's a job that happened over a month ago. Those types of timelines are really important. And then everything else in terms of the background, trying to get the whole picture of the client. So is this a first-time job, so they don't necessarily know how Augusta, rolls? Did they understand the scope of work incorrectly, or was there a miscommunication? Do they have a history of complaining if it's a client that has recurring services, or we've done services before? Even looking at payment information. Are they behind on their bills? Did they prepay? Anything like that. You're trying to get all of the details of the client so that you can better understand where they're coming from, and if there were issues in the past that can help you understand how to deal with it. So while they're venting, you're getting all that information. You're also trying to interpret their main issue and what they're expecting as a resolution. Once they have maybe stopped or they asked you a question, obviously respond to them in kind. But I try to repeat everything that I understand. So I understand that your job was done last week. It wasn't done according to the scope of work. The bush on the right wasn't trimmed, something like that. So maybe in that instance they weren't home, so the crew wasn't able to do a final walkthrough, which usually lets us avoid this type of issue. Anything like that. Were they home? Were they not home? That type of thing. You're just trying to repeat all the details of how you understand what they're saying, and then let them know that we will look into it, we will respond to them, and find a resolution for them as soon as possible. Another very important thing for me, I find, is honestly thanking them for calling and actually letting us know that there's an issue. That's the only opportunity we have to actually resolve something and own up if there's a mistake, or figure out where the miscommunication was. So it is really important that they actually tell us if there are issues on their end. If they don't and they just cancel, then they have not given us an opportunity to actually resolve things. So it is really nice of them to call and let us know, even if they are upset. So that's typically what happens. And then, we look into a little further. Maybe we'll talk to the crew member, the office manager will deal with things, and then we'll respond accordingly. So one thing that's really important when you're on the phone and trying to interpret what they're saying is not to take it personally. I mean, especially because you didn't complete the service. So all you're trying to do is listen, hear them, try to understand exactly what their issue is, and really just get the facts out of it, and then move forward with the facts that you have at hand. A lot of times when someone is yelling at you on the phone, you can feel that transfer of energy and you might get anxious, but it is important to know that it's not you, and it is your job to actually help them go, like, move through their emotion, but also help them find a resolution so that they feel heard and taken care of by Augusta. So you get lots of experience with upset clients, regardless of what the actual issue is. Miscommunication, something was missed on the scope of work in terms of actually doing the work. You just get lots of experience with that. I think you always remember your first call of someone that is very, very upset. Mine was probably my first week working. I started at Augusta in early February, and that was when we had our first major snowstorm, and I was still getting trained. And I answer the phone. It's a property manager. She has probably 10 properties. I couldn't even quite figure out which property she was upset about. She was mad at us that we didn't have salt, or she called it something different, like she called it snow melt, and I couldn't understand if she thought it was a liquid or it was actually salt. Either way, it didn't really matter. She was upset that we didn't have something the whole county didn't have. We were like, the whole county was out of salt. But what had happened was, really, she hadn't planned accordingly for snow, and she didn't want us to plow. And then the snow accumulated so much, and then it was melting and freezing. Now her property had like a solid 6 inches of ice, just like pooled up in the walkways and the driveways of her property. And she was more likely upset with herself, but at the same time, she was reaching out for help. So I was super flustered. I'm sure my face got red. Maybe my voice was shaking, just like, oh my goodness, I don't know the terminology she's using. I don't know what she's talking about. And I was trying to reassure her that we do everything we can for her. And one thing that's really important to remember is like trying to control the conversation. No control over the conversation. I had no idea what she wanted other than she wanted it done, and she wanted it done quickly, and I didn't even know if it was possible. So I apologized. I let her know I'd get back to her as soon as possible, but oh man. I mean, when I got off the phone, I'm sure my body was shaking. I was just like, oh my goodness, I totally dropped the ball, which is not necessarily true. I mean, I know now lots of different ways where you can help move them through their emotions in terms of slowing them down, asking clarifying questions about certain facts and timeline, what her expectation was, reassuring her that we are here to help best we can, maybe even explaining to her a little bit more clearly that we have been on the search for snow, ice melt, anything that would help with, melting the snow and the ice that is accumulating if you have not plowed. And then really moving her forward in terms of like what we can do to avoid this in the future. Setting up a snow contract would help her in the future. Is she actually interested in that? Those things. But I remember the first time it was mostly just like receiving all the emotion and almost like kind of absorbing it and not necessarily knowing what to do. So, when you don't take it personally, you have the ability to remove yourself from the situation and actually move forward into the next steps on how we resolve it, how can we avoid these things in the future, acknowledging what is in my power to do right now, what she can expect from Augusta. Yeah, so I hope this sharing about customer feedback and the lessons I've learned and skills I've developed over the years has helped you with your business, whatever it is, landscaping or otherwise. Have a good day.